Okay, greetings and salutations. Welcome to a little Let's Play, maybe PS I Love You related, the world's #1 PlayStation podcast, as you know. We're here with our friends from Media Molecule to show off Dreams. And the crowd here on Twitch, because we're kind of concurrently doing this on Twitch, streaming it at GDC here, they asked us they asked me to host this, I guess, by myself because I'm a Dream skeptic. I'm a Dream skeptic. And so we talked a little bit about the game kind of leading up to this, but I want to use this particular opportunity to show the game. Let's show it. So we're capturing gameplay now, and I want to let's just get a sampling.
Sure. Do you want to talk, Mark?
Yeah. So I mean, like we were saying before, it's more than a game. There's lots of things to play in there. There'll be games to play, but the key thing is that all the things that you play are made with the tools that also come with it. And the creative people amongst you will hopefully really enjoy using the Create tools because we've gone for this very kind of immediate, sort of performance-based, expressive kind of mentality for creating things. So you can see John here is just doing a quick demonstration of the sculpting tools, which is almost like virtual clay. And so you see he sculpted a rock there, and then he can immediately clone that rock and start stamping it around the world. The important thing here is the way that he's placing things in the world are very intuitive. It's using the motor skills that you will have learned as a child. It's very direct. If you want to put something over there, you go like that and rotate it. The kind of controls that you're seeing more and more in lots of VR demos now. There's a very intuitive kind of control method there. And here you can see with the sculpting, there's no worrying about polygons and vertices and UV mapping. He's just got these shapes that he can kind of smear, and I don't know what he's going to make here.
Well, what are you making, John?
I was just going to start on ahead. I haven't really got a plan.
I mean, that's one of the key things about this is you don't really need to work out up front what you're going to make. You can just go in there and just start playing around and sketching, and you can kind of serendipitously sort of get an idea for something. Like this is starting to look like some kind of Star Wars head or something to me. So you can see he's just like adding simple shapes there. Maybe he can sort of carve a few shapes out as well to show that how. There we go. We've got some amazing tech in there.
So John,
the tools seem I don't want to say complicated, but complex.
Yes.
2 move controllers you're using now.
Yep.
You're using the face buttons and the triggers on those?
Yes, I am, yeah. Well, pretty much all the buttons, but most of them are for shortcuts, and really you're using the triggers, really, and the big move buttons.
And we have
camera.
it's gesture-based, so John can switch between modes by tapping the ends together, tapping one end, tapping them sideways, twisting them. So we want to do as much control that's immediate and analog, so buttons are less analog than the move controllers, gyro sensors.
That's super interesting.
I mean, it's important to point out, actually, that move controllers is just one way of using Dreams. We actually support the DualShock, obviously, as well, with a camera, or you can use a DualShock without a camera, and it all works really brilliantly. So you don't need to, lay out lots of money to try out Dreams. The artists tend to gravitate towards the move controllers because they like to, give it a bit of this and that. But you can sit there and just kind of rotate the thing, and it works really nice.
I like using the DualShock myself because I'm a designer, so I'm often making gameplay, and I'll sort of be jumping in with the DualShock and running around and moving. So for me, having a DualShock is like super important.
And so with PlayStation camera specifically would only be used for move, right? You would only...
you can track, we can track the DualShock as well. We've got 3D tracking working on the DualShock.
Okay, so I guess what I'm asking is is it gyro based in the sense that would you need the camera even if you're using DualShock? Okay, all right.
You can use that. I mean, if you're using a DualShock without the camera, we just use the gyros as more like a pointer kind of device, and you can move backwards and forwards with the stick.
Okay.
And we use the touchpad for rotation, so it's a slightly different set of controls, but you can do all of the same things that he's doing.
So John's jumped into a scene here, and he's just basically grabbing the existing bits that are in this small scene, and then he's just adapting and modifying it, which is a big key thing in Dreams, is that we have this ethos of remixing. So you could take a partially finished scene or even a fully finished scene and then just remix it to be your own in next to no time at all.
But I mean, you can see how quickly he's putting together these elements here, and he's not really, worrying about this kind of things that you'd normally stress about when you're building a scene, like, oh, the frame rate's going down. He's just kind of sketching, essentially. It's very free form. And this is just one element of it. You can see he's sculpted some props. Now he's like assembling those props. If you feel like you can't sculpt things, you just search the community for other props that people have already made. You want a tree, do a search for a tree, and you'll have hundreds of trees to choose from. So you can assemble a scene like that. And even if you don't want to assemble a scene, you can just look for scenes that people have already assembled and then maybe throw a few characters in there and kind of just mix and match a kind of play experience. And you know, this is still creation we're talking about. For a lot of people, they'll want to come and just play and consume the things that people have made.
So is there going to be some sort of, like, I don't want to say like a linear narrative or whatever, but is there some sort of, if I just jump in, I don't even want to look at the community stuff, I just want to play the let's call it the campaign.
Yes,
I don't know.
sure, exactly.
There is a...
Yep, and we've just started gathering momentum on that. So yeah, we're going to make fully fledged game that would stand alone on its on its own two legs without any of the editor tools. It's going to be a proper game.
So at the end of the day, we are game makers. You know, that's always what we've been. That's what we really enjoy. And the reason we put so much creative content into our games and, you know, attributes is because we just want to share our love of creation and games making with everyone else and allow them to make it. But first and foremost, we are game makers.
And how would you describe, this is what I'm most curious about, is how, because I know that in Little Big Planet you can make really whatever you want, but it is a side-scroller, side-scrolling action game, let's call it.
Yeah, so what's our game?
Yeah, like what is it, because it seems third person?
I mean, this is one of our challenges, is because it is an incredibly flexible tool. I mean, at its heart, really, it's a really flexible game design tool, as flexible and powerful as something like Unity, maybe, you know, so you can make anything you can imagine. So our challenges are like, well, what are we going to make with this, and what do we focus on? So what we're settled on, I don't know how to describe this, but I describe it as a tactile, interactive adventure game, because this kind of idea of performance that I talk about with the create tools, we want to bring that into the play as well. And you know, when we started making this, it wasn't so common, but now because of VR, the kind of things we're talking about are becoming more common. So it's simple things like you go up to a door and you want to open that door, you reach out and grab the door and pull the door open like this. So there'll be lots of tactile interactive puzzles that you see that little orange kind of hairy thing with the light on top of his head?
Yes.
That's your main kind of avatar in the game. That's you in dreams. So it's almost like a glorified 3D cursor, really, is the sort of dry version of it. When you're playing, you can use that to interact with the world. So you could be solving, like a tactile puzzle box or something. And then the other mechanic that we'll use a lot is this idea of possessing characters. So you can see his imp just jumped into that character there. And now you're controlling a character with familiar stick controls. We've got this slight addition of being able to perform with the character, so you can kind of act and do silly things. So if you want to play through a game, you can kind of, be silly, makes it more interesting to watch. So really we're going to be focused around that mechanic of exploring worlds with these different bipeds and vehicles, and then coming out and manipulating the world with the imp to unblock progress.
The game is beautiful.
Yeah, this is kind of a take on Cezanne. One of the artists is really inspired by Cezanne, so he decided to pretty much recreate one of his famous paintings. But what the engine really allows is it's really interesting. When you see a game normally, you can work out which team has made it. I think Dreams is very good when you see a scene, you can see what person's made it. And that's been a tenet of the art director's vision, was to allow that to come through.
That's very cool.
Have real personality to each of the scenes.
I would say with the idea of the game and the kind of the bold, imaginative nature of it, you'd know what studio made the overall game. I think.
And just like Little Big Planet, the thing that I just tried to describe probably quite badly is kind of going to be the meat and potatoes of the game experience. But there'll be lots of like secret side missions that you can unlock that kind of, 1 minute you might be playing a mini game that's a traditional shooter or something, or a racing game or something like this. And that's because we want to sow the seeds with what's possible with this for the creators to sort of, say, well, look, here's some examples of what you can make. Hopefully that'll give you some ideas to go off and make, wilder and wackier things.
Is it fair to say, and I don't know if it is, but I'm curious what you guys think of it, is it fair to say that in kind of the balance, the scales of creation versus play, which Little Big Planet I think was more play than creation, and more emphasized maybe like you can just jump in and play. Are the scales a little bit reversed here, where you're going to kind of maybe emphasize or rely more on on creation than no? So you think the balance is the same?
I think it's. I think anything like this, something like YouTube is probably a good comparison. Most people watch YouTube. More people watch YouTube than actually upload or contribute videos. People will upload, themselves falling over or whatever.
Right.
You see what I mean? It's probably a similar ratio, but we're always keen to encourage people to create, which is why we've tried to make the create tools much more playful. And the cool thing about the create tools actually is that they are fun to use and they're also fun to watch. So even if what you make is rubbish, it was kind of fun doing it. It's a bit like I could give you a pot of paint and a paint gun, and you can spray it on the wall. You know, it's not going to be a work of art, but you had a good time doing it. So there's a very playful element to the Create tools.
I think the Bob Ross phenomenon recently kind of emphasised the fact that people love to watch other people making things.
In fact, we really want to just blur the lines between what is play and what is create. In our minds, they're kind of two of the same thing, you know? And like Mark said, having fun shooting a paintball gun around the room and making it is creative, yet at the same time it's fun. It could be a game, you know? That's the kind of like, we don't see a line, we don't see this divide of play, create. We don't want to put more emphasis on create or more emphasis on play. We just think they're one and the same thing.
It's seamless. Yeah, it seems like, I mean, like, just in seeing the scenes, and the scenes that we've seen so far, I mean, I've been paying attention to the game as you guys have been rolling things out, and then seeing what you guys are showing here, and it seems, it's dynamic in the sense that there's no, and I don't mean this in a bad way at all, there's no rhyme or reason to what you're seeing. It's like really whatever you want it to be.
These particular examples that you're seeing here are literally just some scenes that we've put together and put some characters in. But
and to show the broadness of what you can make.
Just to give you a bit of a flavour of the kind of, you know, broad visual range that you can achieve. But I mean, just like Little Big Planet, there is the ability to put in logic and scripting essentially, so people can make games. And in fact, these two guys just come off the Train Jam. I don't know if you know about the Train Jam.
Yeah, we were talking about that, but yeah, explain it to the.
Yeah, well, when it was, I think you started in Chicago
yeah.
and then
52 hours. I think it's 2,300 miles, 52 hours in a small space with a lot of other people making games.
Yeah,
amazing scenery. But we made a game from scratch using our tools. Everything in it, from
totally from scratch.
All the art assets, all the music in there, the animation in there. You
take a look at it now. So this will be something that maybe this will be the first thing people have seen in Dreams that actually looks a bit like a game. Like press X to play.
Play.
And we did this while on a moving train, which was quite shaky. And, you know, but it was really fun, and it was entirely made, as said, from scratch. Every single asset, to the audio, to the
and that is one of the key differences between this and Little Big Planet. Because in Little Big Planet, you were kind of assembling scenes out of assets that we had made in, you know, Maya or Max or whatever. In this, everything is made almost from an atomic level up. So
and no one believed me when they're like, "So did you do all this ahead of time and now you're assembling it?" I was like, "No, I started this morning," and they couldn't wrap their head around that. And most teams were making, I guess, much smaller ambition games. So it was like the speed at which you can make things using our tools is probably the thing that's the biggest revolution, certainly for the art anyway.
Yeah, so the art in this level, for example, John made in a few hours.
Yeah, it's a 15-hour stretch in one.
Yeah.
So what's happening in the game here? You can see he's got a character and he's gathering these little blue, what are they, fuel pods or something?
Yeah, in this case, you initially think they're just like little cute guys you're saving, but it transpires that they're just living fuel pellets for your spaceship to get off this planet. So you can raise your right hand in the air and they follow you, or you can raise your left hand and then they stop and wait patiently for you.
And you use the logic programming and all this stuff
Yeah. Every single aspect of this.
That's just amazing. Like,
made from scratch.
I can't even wrap my head around how. I don't know how you would even do that. I mean, I believe that the tools are there, but it's like that's the most extraordinary part of this is like.
Yeah. That's one thing we're gonna sort of announce at some point, and we're really sort of excited to get it. But you know, at the end of the day, we really are a game making company, and we just want to make awesome games. So,
I mean, and this is an example of what can be made in 2 days on a train speeding across America.
Yeah, with distractions out the window.
Yeah, and we're going to sit down and spend, you know, a proper amount of time really putting a lot of effort into making a quality game experience.
Yeah.
So.
And the tools aren't remotely finished yet. You know, we're still early. We're still in development. So we can make a game like this with unfinished tools when the game actually comes out and all those tools are finished.
I have to ask. I mean, you must internally know. I don't know if you can say. I mean, this is clearly not this year. Is this a what are you guys aiming for 2017 for the game? Because it sounds like you guys are still very preliminary and.
Can I say when we're aiming for? No. Well, we're aiming for the fairly near future. But before the actual release, though, we are going to have a beta program. so we can kind of get some people on board and kind of load test it and thrash out the tools a little bit more.
Excellent. Yeah, you'll probably learn a great deal.
Yeah, exactly.
From the metrics you get out of that.
Actually, something worth mentioning that we haven't mentioned yet is these 3D prints. Actually,
I was actually looking at these.
So the sculpting tools, which you saw a tiny bit of,
doing it very, very quickly, but this is if you take a bit more time.
Those things that you sculpt, you can actually export them out of the game if you like, as like an OBJ file, and import those into a traditional game making package, or 3D print them. So this is like a sculpture that John made. I don't know if you better see that.
I'm just I'm the mech guy. I really like.
There's nothing wrong with that.
And that was literally, how long did that take? That was sculpting.
That was like half a day. Yeah. I did it in the morning, and
super. People can't see it at home, but it's like super complex.
I can actually. It's in a second. I can load it up on the game. And unfortunately, we have just crashed. I'm afraid to say, but
I mean, it's interesting when we're.
Oh, okay.
It's interesting when we're sort of demoing Dreams, how many people are interested in just that aspect of it.
Yeah.
I mean, I'd love us to do a deal or something with someone like Shapeways or whatever, and have a button in the game where you can just send off your sculpt and receive it through the post.
We can imagine making a board game with that as well.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah, you can make all sorts of war games or whatever with something like this.
And then kind of on the other end, you've got almost like sculpture art, which you could use to prototype, a sculpture that you wanted to make.
And
this is cool. This is really cool.
I wanted to point out, even though we just crashed, the way our game works with the edits, you can just load straight back into things, and it saves all the time, so you never lose any work. You can just come straight back exactly to where you were.
Yeah, it's serendipitous then that it was shown off like this.
Everything is
so there you go. That is the in-game representation of the mech there. And so you can see it doesn't have to look all painterly, even though that's the style we actually prefer. You can actually make nice hard-edged things like this, and then you can even remix this guy, because this is like the whole process of remixing. So you can grab a bit of him like that, shrink it down.
Yeah, because for a lot of people, they'll be intimidated at creating.
Just make a mech tail like that, you see. So now it's
just fascinating to watch the tools, I think.
And it still has all those details and the resolution.
Yeah, and it is cool seeing you use the controller as opposed to the move controllers. Although I found that the way you were interacting with the move controller, especially like tapping them and stuff, is quite genius, actually.
Yeah. It's beautiful to use.
I mean, and of course there's VR as well, which is going to be incredibly exciting. The idea of making these worlds whilst you're actually in them, and just the idea of essentially crowdsourcing VR experiences, I think will really help to kind of push the kinds of things that are possible and that are fun in VR.
So yeah, tell me a little bit about like what your ambitions are with that, as opposed to like kind of so this is more conventional. So it seems like you have a controller-based game, move-based game, and then now PSVR, right?
Yeah, so, I mean the VR is going to come after we've done
the core, of course, right.
But it's hard not to be excited about that, because
it makes sense
for me. It's the holy grail is user created VR experiences. It's going to be I really loved a book many years ago called Snow Crash, which I don't know if you're familiar with that.
I'm
book.
not.
It was about a virtual online world where people could construct their own houses and things, and you could go and explore this world that other people were making. It's just going to be amazing.
So I wanted to just point out this scene. I'm getting married later this year.
Yeah. Congratulations. Hey.
Thank you very much.
Oh, Greg's here. I was like, wow, you look different, Kevin.
And so during one lunchtime, I sculpted our exact wedding venue. Then I brought my fiance in, and then we could decide virtually where we wanted to put the tables and what color the balloons would be and how many people it would be. So this is actually my wedding location.
That's awesome.
Made in Dreams, and it's brick for brick perfect of what it is. I took a load of pictures while we were out there.
And I'm going to say, I'm going to respect the intimacy of the wedding. Some weddings are way too big. I mean, there's weddings that have like 200 people at them.
What's through
way
that
too many people?
White bit there.
That's a really lovely courtyard, actually. But I have yet to sculpt that. That might come later.
I mean, it's interesting. I heard you say the word serendipity earlier on, which obviously with the Create tools, we've really embraced this idea of, embracing mistakes and things like that. But the serendipitous thing comes into the play as well, because there's this idea in Dreams that you can dream surf. So this is purely for playing. You can go into a dream and play it, and you'll find a door in that dream. And when you go through that door, it can go to a random experience. So you'll actually have this kind of, this is where the dreams thing comes from. You go through a door. 1 minute you're in a studio, you walk through the door, and you're suddenly in a desert. And there's this kind of mode where you've got this kind of random stringing together of experiences. So I think that's going to be really entertaining.
It's not. I mean, the game. it's making way more sense to me from a consumer perspective and from a critical perspective. It's making me so nervous for you guys having to put this game together because it sounds so complicated. It really does sound very complicated.
It's
from
ambitious.
your perspective, ambitious. That's a great way of putting it.
Sure, there's been a lot of screwdriver fights and that kind of thing. But no, we
and
know
if it's not a struggle though, it's you're usually not doing it right.
Yeah, that's true. I mean,
you got to push yourselves to make something different. I think.
Yeah.
And it is interesting seeing, obviously there's an emphasis on tools in the creation of all games internally at the beginning, and then you make your game. But it's interesting that it seems like a lot or most of development will be spent making the tools, and it seems like a very honest kind of way to make your game in the sense that it's authentic. Like it's like we are going to make the game now using these tools we've spent years making.
Yeah, we've just been very transparent and open sort of from quite early on. But I mean, I've been making games since I was a teenager, which is a long time ago.
It was only like 10 years ago, right?
Yeah, something like that. To the power 2, maybe. But but in my experience, definitely as as I went on in the games industry, there is a lot of time that's spent making tools, and often that is actually where the majority of time and effort goes. And then it's only when you've got the tools that you can sit down and make the game. So there is a lot of effort that goes into tools behind the scenes in other games companies. We're just making those public facing too.
Now let me ask you guys a question. It's a candid question because a lot of people point at me and say like, well, I'm the dream skeptic and whatever. I can't be the only one, right? Are you guys? Is it common that you guys are getting feedback that people don't quite understand, or am I like an anomaly? Because I feel like when I talk to some of our fans, they're like, what are you talking about? It's so obvious, and I'm like,
I think that's because we've been showing the create tools specifically, and it's only just recently that we've actually started hinting at what the game might be.
Yeah.
And internally, we're actually really gathering momentum on the game now. So, sometime this year, we'll be really making it very clear what the play experience is out of the box.
Yeah, I'm super interested. I mean,
so it doesn't surprise me at all.
Well, it's good to hear because sometimes I feel like I'm crazy. Greg makes me feel like I'm crazy. 2 minutes? All right. Well, let's wrap up then. Let's say let's leave it like this. It's a PlayStation 4 game. Release date undetermined. All right.
That's a naughty word.
I thought we were aiming for like.
Mark, shut it down.
Shut it down.
He gets us into trouble.
I feel.
Make it then, right?
If there's any lip readers out there. Yeah.
I'm gonna say it's a 2017 game, but that's unconfirmed.
Yeah.
And by neither Molecular or Sony.
That sounds like a good target to me.
It's a PlayStation 4 exclusive. Obviously, Media Molecule is a first-party studio. Super pleased to see, obviously, DualShock with or without camera, if you want to track the light bar, and then PlayStation Move. Can you use one move controller, or would you need?
No,
it
is two moves.
So similar to PSVR, I would say if you're excited about this game, maybe buy your moves now because I think they're really cheap, and I don't know if they're going to be so cheap in the future with PSVR coming out. And your camera, obviously, too, if you want to use that. And then with promise in the future, some undetermined time, PSVR support, which is super exciting. I think that's actually where this game might shine even more.
Yeah.
I agree with you. I think that the potential for that, I think, is super exciting. So, gentlemen, thank you for joining me on this. We'll wrap up this video now. This is, of course, streaming on Twitch as well, but that's not important to you if you're watching this on YouTube. Watch PS I Love You. Listen to PS I Love You. It exists for you. #1 PlayStation podcast on the internet. All right, we love you. Bye.
Thank you.